Hey, everybody, welcome to the Nation. That's Barbecue Nation. I'm JT. My co host and co pilot, Leanne, is off working for PepsiCo this week, I believe. Her and her sister do these food styling gigs for big commercial television shoots and stuff. And so that's what she's doing. She ran away from home. Um, but I don't blame her for that. We'd like to thank the folks at Painted Hills Natural Beef, beef the way nature intended. You can go to paintedhillsbeef.com, check out their story. It's great beef. You can even order some online there if they're not in your part of the country. Well, we've got a friend of the show is back today, Stan Hayes, the CEO and co-founder of Operation Barbecue Relief. I always enjoy talking to Stan because they do such great work. Um, Truly, truly. We don't have that many disasters, if you will, up here in the Northwest. Hurricanes, floods, that type of thing. Get a little flood once in a while. But in the Midwest, the South, and in other parts of the world, Stan and his crew are there. Hey, welcome back, bud.
Thank you so much for having me back on. I appreciate it, and you know, I'm honored to continue to be invited back.
Not a problem. You and I both like to talk, so it's easy to fill up the hour. Um, OBR has been really busy. I follow you online, of course, and I talk to you a couple times a year and
Yep,
that. But what have you guys been doing lately? I mean, last time you were on, we talked about the camp,
yep,
and I know you've made a lot of progress on that. You've got a benefit golf tournament coming up
yep.
with some stuff. You're looking for a director of I don't want to say the title wrong, Stan. You can say it.
Yeah, it's really director of disaster. We call it director of disaster because they do more than just culinary, but it's a very, you know, director of disaster culinary is how it started, but that position gets into more operational pieces than just the food service side. So, it's a very culinary heavy position. We're looking for somebody that obviously understands the volume
Right.
and but has some experience, not necessarily all disaster experience, but understands also menu planning and scalability.
Right. Right. That's a huge deal. I'll tell you a quick story. Years ago, I worked for an overseas firm that bought they bought a ranch, and they did this big essay contest in their country and in this country, and they brought in, like, I don't know, it's about 100 kids. Okay. And I was the resident wrangler for a couple of weeks there for them because I was a horse guy, right? The amount of food that they brought in two semis full of food, Stan, and it was incredible. And then they got rained out, so they left it all, and we donated most of it to charity and stuff. But that really struck a chord with me of planning and not knowing. Uh, they could have had 300 kids there, and they wouldn't have eaten all this food in 10 days.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I think that's an integral part of it.
It is, and we used to start out with rolling a couple of semis, but in our planning process we're about 10 semis deep when we start looking, especially on a major disaster, a big hurricane coming in, or a big tornado that just happens. You mentioned, up in your area. I mean, really, your area is wildfires and occasional
Yeah.
flood, and wildfires and floods are very much the same in many ways. People sort of go in all different directions. They don't normally go to one concerted little area like they might after a tornado hits,
Right.
or are evacuated from a hurricane. And the flooding and fires can turn like that, to where an area that is evacuated today, by 10 o'clock tonight they may be letting everybody back in, right?
Right. Right.
So, which very rarely ever happens, after a tornado or a hurricane, where they let people back in that quickly, unless it just didn't hit that area.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the kind of the strange things. Last few years we've had some pretty good sized fires up here in both Oregon and Washington. And they would have these zones, the red zone, and it was a green zone, which was fine, yellow, caution, red, don't go in there. And then there was another one, which is like, you're not going home type deal. But that, like you said, that would change sometimes within just a couple hours.
Yeah.
And people could go back, and if they left livestock or whatever, check it out, get their goods out, be safe. But yeah, when you see we see it, of course, on television and stuff. When we see flooding, the aftermath of hurricanes, that type of, some poor reporter standing on the beach with his leg chained to a concrete block so he doesn't get blown away trying to do his live remote there. I always feel sorry for those guys. You don't come back right away, but you got to eat. You got to eat.
Yep.
You know.
You got to eat. I mean, let's face it. There's a few things that you have to have. Shelter's one, a big one, and food is the other big one.
Right.
And then there's the resources such as emergency resources or things like that. We're just we're really only qualified in one area, and that is the food side. We can't help much about the housing. We can't, we're not an EMS type group or anything like that can help, or even provisioning outside of the food side. I mean, finding diapers, finding things like that, clothes that people need. That we partner with some people around that time, that do those things, but that's not what we're really good at. What we're good at is being able to provide a good, hot, comforting meal.
How do you plan, make up an event? There's a hurricane coming to the west side of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got the guys at NOAA and the weather services, and they're saying it's a Cat 3 or Cat 5 or whatever. But how do you, when you first roll the semis, how do you kind of know what you're going to need right out the gate? I mean, you're obviously going to be there for a while, so you can restock at
Yeah.
some point. But how do you know what you're going to hit the ground with?
Yeah. So, we start with, looking at the size of the area going to be impacted. Obviously, Cat 3 to Cat 5 doesn't really matter at that point. When you're at a Cat 3 or above, there's going to be widespread damage. So really, what we're going to do is we're going to be rolling in our first trucks that are going to have our main staples. Right, we have a quick culinary to hit the ground running within the first 24 hours, to where we can start putting meals out once we get on the ground. Usually quick fire stuff,
Yeah.
sausage sandwiches, things like that
Right.
are more heat and serve type of a approach. Then but we're, like I said, we'll start out with a series of about 10 semi trucks that we know are going to come in, and we even our own equipment, like our command center. I always wanted our command center to roll in first, right? And I wanted it to be front and center so everybody saw it. But it's now one of the ladder vehicles that comes in, because I need the food there on site. I need the smokers on site. I need the equipment and supplies. So those things start rolling in generally within 24 hours. We warehouse a lot of our own stuff. We have multiple warehouses around the country. We also work with Amazon, who allows us to at least store some vehicle and vehicle or vehicles and trailers at their main disaster hub is in Atlanta. So that's a great place for us, especially when you're looking along the Gulf Coast or up the East Coast side during hurricane season. So we're able to also move equipment around the different parts of the year. We know right now in tornado season that we're going to sit here and make sure that we have stuff, around the Midwest and across the Ohio Valley area down towards Texas, Oklahoma, just to make sure that we have coverage. But like our main food storage right now, freezer storage is Kansas City and Dallas. So between the two areas, Kansas City is really a smaller hub. We only have a certain amount of space, but it's donated space and frees better than paying whenever possible.
Sure.
And then we're actually looking at moving all the stuff from Dallas to another warehouse space that we have on the Tennessee Virginia border. around the Tri-Cities area, because one, we already have equipment in that area. We already have a warehouse space, and the owner of the warehouse is going to build us. He's in the business of, cooler storage and things like that.
Sure.
He builds those things. So he's actually working on building that out for us, because we've ran into problems. We're a small client, and we're a client that doesn't generate a lot of revenue for them.
Right.
Meaning that, most of those warehouses get paid on the churn. They
Yep.
get paid on the square footage, but the churn is what really, that in and out is where they really make their money. So they
Right.
don't like us when it sits there for 8 months and doesn't
Right.
move. So we're, it can take us 3 to 5 days to get our stuff out of one of those big box warehouses, because we're a small customer and everything. So we've got to start out with the first couple of semis already in place. And so we're just working our way to the point that, at any given time in warehouse space, I have probably around 350 to 400,000 servings of meat,
Right.
and about the same amount on, maybe a little less on, like number 10 cans of vegetables and stuff like that.
Sure.
That way I can roll in with a couple of semis on my own and start the process and then backfill like you're talking about.
Right. Right. That's well, it's such a huge job. And um, to know that, being a guy that ran a catering company for a number of years, on that very small scale, it's kind of mind-boggling to think about what you guys are doing. We got to take a break, but we're going to be back with Stan Hayes, who happens to be the CEO and one of the founding members of Operation Barbecue Relief. And Stan and I will be back in just a couple minutes. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the nation. That's Barbecue Nation. I'm JT. Leanne is off on special assignment this week. If you'd like to check out our websites and stuff real quick, you can just go to barbecuenationjt.com. You can find us all kinds of social media platforms, between Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all that stuff. Leanne and I personally have them. The show has it. Kind of hard to miss us. Anyway, we're talking with Stan Hayes from Operation Barbecue Relief. Stan's been on the show several times before. I always enjoyed talking with him because this stuff fascinates me from the logistics side and the cooking side. But also what I think is you guys really step up with helping people in need. I'll tell you this, folks, if you've not been under any, and I'm sure a lot of you have, but if you've never been under duress, real serious duress, and you haven't eaten for 36 hours, and you're trying to find a place to get a bottle of water because you're starting to dehydrate, Stan and his crew are the people you want to talk to. That's what I can say, because those situations are not pleasant. When you roll in, and you were talking in the first segment, Stan, you have kind of the heat and eat type stuff like that. Do the meals get kind of graduated as time goes on? If you think you're going to be in a situation for 10 days, do they get a little more fresh vegetables instead of canned vegetables, that type of thing, if you can get your hands on them?
Yeah, the fresh vegetables are a challenge in itself, cooking time wise, and finding them in the amount that we need.
Right.
If you're doing 25,000 meals or 30 or 40,000 meals in a day, cooking from fresh, we're already got towers of pallets of number 10 cans. If we
Right.
started bringing in fresh vegetables, it would take forever. Now we do some of the fresh stuff that we do try to add and augment with the meals as we go. We try to bring fruit when we can get it. We try
Yeah.
to add in even if we have to do fruit cups, right? Things that they can take with them, handheld type things, snacks, everything from granola bars, something that at lunchtime that they can have a few hours down the road before they have, and especially if they don't get back out and get dinner.
Right.
So we continue to work on that. And our big focus last year, 2 years has been around that, adding that fruit component to it. just a little bit more. The fruit cups are great because you literally can sit there and hold it for later as a snack.
Right.
Um, and we're even getting into and looking at what we can do. We don't do breakfast today, but we're looking at putting together with the help of some of our partners out there, breakfast boxes that would be more shelf stable items that you
Sure.
can take out there. And again, it's not that comfort meal piece,
Right. Right. Right.
but at the same time, it still gives them something. Whether it's a box of cereal, today the milk today, the shelf stable milk today that they have isn't like the old days where you mix the powder up in the water when you were camping as a
Yeah.
kid and everything else. It's actually pretty good, and that way you're able to give them a little bit of normalcy. A bowl of cereal in the morning, and a fruit bar or something like that is what a lot of families and people are used to. They're not not everybody's used to having bacon and eggs for breakfast or something.
Right. Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah. We used to
that's
call that
something that
blue
we're
milk.
graduating into,
Yeah.
today.
Stan, when I was a kid, we called that blue milk. That's that old carnation stuff that they mixed up. It was god awful, but
When I was a kid and we were out there, we we'd be out camping and stuff like that. They wouldn't bring cartons of milk. They'd bring an empty carton and they'd mix that up.
yeah, it
And
was
then they
pretty.
try to get you to drink it. Like
Yeah,
I'd
that.
much rather drink the cold water out of that tap than.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, how is the camp doing?
The camp has come along great. It has progressed to the point that this week, the first building, the bathhouse
Hmm.
construction, is that they are sealing the concrete floors
Oh,
yesterday
cool.
and today. It will give it a 48-hour cure time after that, and we're now just waiting for the propane to be hooked up for the hot water, um, and we're ready to start rolling essentially with the bathhouse. So the tiny cabins that we already have that are down in the woods that we use now, people don't have to roll over and come to the lodge to take a shower or use the restroom or anything like that. They'll be able to walk to the top of the hill, about half the distance, the distance isn't great, but I mean, just it's a little bit more convenient
Sure.
to roll in there. So it's I think the last thing after that, and they start putting the siding on, then we'll finish the ramp. We'll get finished for the ADA accessibility
Right.
for it. But it's exciting. The first cabin itself is about ready to punch and go through the punch list of, hey, we need to touch up here. This isn't right, or this
Yeah.
needs to be moved, or whatever it might be. And then we're going to be able to empty out. We already have the mattresses. We've had them for over a year. They were donated by the Sealy Foundation, Tempur-Pedic Sealy. Basically gave us a truckload of what we need. I think we're like maybe 2 mattresses short when it's said and done.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll be able to move those out of our shop, which takes up about 40% of the shop space.
Yeah.
And other right now has been all the wood, keeping the wood in a controlled environment, to go in there. And we're using a lot of rough cut pine and staining it a nice golden rich, sort of honey color, if you will. And
Sure.
so, we got a lot's going on, but it's moving, it's progressing. I'm down there every other week for construction meetings. So I'll be down there next Tuesday and really have an opportunity to see the progress. And it's amazing in 2 weeks, what we're seeing.
And that's kind of the fun part too. When you get to go
Oh,
back and see the progress made, and you kind of puts a smile on your face, I'm sure.
yeah. Well, right now, if everything, we don't have any major hiccups, the first week in June, they should literally, be handing over the proverbial keys and moving their stuff out. And, my team's been coming in and working on all the little things, whether it's the skeet shooting range, the archery range, the garden area. One of our volunteers who actually has been a recipient of the camp already, um, a Gold Star dad. He's a hobby beekeeper,
Yeah,
and he's really grown in that hobby. And so he came up and brought us some more hives and brought us some more, you know, equipment to expand our beehives.
that's
And
great.
all of those things will be things that people that have interest in them will obviously do. I mean, if you have interest in beekeeping, we're going to have that. If showing kids, to me, showing kids where vegetables come from, just the basics of you know
Yep.
what goes into a salsa, just almost is I think is more needed today than it's ever been, because we grew up with gardens in our backyard as kids and everything else, and most people have gotten away from that. Kids don't know that where where a tomato comes from. They don't
Exactly.
know these kind of things. And so we also want to be able to add at the camp those fresh vegetables. And the culinary center itself, I mean, for those that haven't seen the video, they should go watch some of the videos on it. But our chicken coop is built into the actual built the actual barn that we're turning into this culinary education center. And the only thing we're doing is moving the door from inside what would be inside the culinary center now into the chicken coop to the side. But we're going to put in a nice big window so you can see the chickens in there, so
Oh, there you
people
go.
can see it.
There you go.
And it's a vital part of it. Our chickens over the winter, when I had friends that weren't laying, weren't getting more than 2 or 3 eggs a week, we were getting sometimes 18 eggs a day off of a dozen hens.
Oh, there you go. That works. Hey, we got to take another break. We're going to be back with
But
Stan Hayes from Operation Barbecue Relief here on the Nation. Don't go away. This is great stuff. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Barbecue Nation. I'm JT. Miss Whippen is out in the world this week on special assignment, but we've got her captured again for next week. We'd like to thank the folks at Painted Hills Natural Beef, beef the way nature intended. Go to their website at Painted Hills Beef. Um, Check out their website, their story. They've got an online store there. Great stuff. Do that. And also, I want to talk to you a little bit about pig powder. That's Leanne's product, invented by her father, Trim Tab. If you don't know what trim means, it's an air pilot term, you might say. Anyway, it was voted at one time the best rub on the planet. So go to bigpowder.com. Leanne will make sure it gets to you. She might even autograph a picture for you, as I always give her a hard time about. But regardless of that, we've got Stan Hayes here today from Operation Barbecue Relief. When you started this 13 years ago or whatever it was, Stan, did you ever think it would get this big? I mean, we all have, when we start things, we kind of think like, man, I'd really, someday this, that, we dreams, but you've actually made it happen, you and your crew.
yeah, so it's probably that's one of probably the top three questions that I get asked is, did you ever think? And I know exactly where the question's going when it starts. And no, I never thought it would be this big. I never thought, I knew we were making having an impact in communities.
Yeah,
Um, I knew it would grow. I don't know that anybody ever thought it would grow to the point it is today. I don't think, as you look at it, our growth outside of the disaster into first responders and what I'll just call those heroes that are always serving us. Um, I think that has been a natural progression to continue to do good, because when you look at the people that we're serving, you look at the volunteer group that we have. They're the ones that really told us, hey, outside of disasters, we want to help our first responders, or we want to help the veterans in our community, or the active military.
sure.
And so we listen to what our volunteers have to say, and as well as our partners out there. Where do they look at continuing to help?
How many volunteers do you have now? Or I'm sure it fluctuates depending on the
Oh,
situation, but
yeah. So we have over 18,000 people who've registered with their email in a database, right? Over the last 13 years. Of that, we have about 800 or so that have actually got through the full process to get, have their background check done, provide all the detailed information that we need. That's more than just their email address.
right.
And I call those our engaged volunteers. Anybody that spends the time to go through there and have their background check done and fill out all the different line items that we ask for, right? Um, they're truly the ones that we really rely on. So you have, you know, you have 800 that what I'd call the core group, and out of that core, above that 800 of the 18,000 that we have, the other ones I call those being in the right place or the wrong place at the right time, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
right? Um, they're ones that don't have the flexibility to travel. They don't have the flexibility to take long periods off. But if we were in their community on a Saturday, they may come out, right? They're
Right.
interested. They want to get our emails. They want to see what we're doing. They just may not today be able to be in that situation. And not everybody is. We understand that. But I mean, a good number of those 800 started out with that, and now have grown to, hey, you know, people that we've done additional training and education on. So they're actually leading different areas during deployments.
Excellent. Let's talk about the food. We've touched on it a couple of times, but
You
do
bet.
you get like the proteins, whether it's chicken or beef or pork or whatever, do you have to buy those, or do you have some companies that will help you out and donate some, or uh, a disaster happens and you've got 20,000 pounds of pork? Well, that if you're going to serve 200,000 meals over the course of a time, that only going to take care of part of it. Do you ever get a
Yeah.
phone call from a CEO or a VP somewhere and says, Stan, send your truck over here. I've got another 40,000 pounds of pork shoulder for you?
Yeah, we do. So let me start at the beginning of that big question is,
Sure.
so one of our very first sponsors in the meat area was Seaboard Foods Prairie Fresh Pork.
Hmm.
And they have been with us now for probably 7-8 years at least. And every year they pledge to donate so much, and you're talking about pounds, we talk about how many truckloads. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
when we're going through that, and really, um they come to us when they're long on things, going, hey, do you have storage room, because we've got a bunch of product here that we had to freeze. Because I mean, companies like Prairie Fresh try to keep it fresh. They try not to
Right.
freeze it and get it from the factory to the stores, without doing that. Once they freeze it, then that window that they have, of, hey, how long are we going to keep this, we don't have an infinite amount. So that's one of the companies. We have a couple other pork producers out there. Holstone, who's a smaller, has been a good supporter of us. We've got stuff from Tyson before. We've got stuff from Smithfield. All of them have been involved. When it comes to beef, National Beef has been involved for the last couple of years, and we just did a project with them, last week. And so I expect that to continue to happen. Beef is so much more expensive. So when
Right.
you get a truckload of briskets donated to you, that's a big day for you,
Oh,
because
sure.
if I have to pay for it, I'm going to go poultry or pork all day long, because the cost per pound is it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
it's cost prohibitive for me to irresponsibly pay for beef when poultry and pork are so much cheaper. And then Mount Air and the poultry world, kind of, I'm forgetting some names. I mean, on the poultry side, uh, Butterball is really the only one that we have a deal with. The other ones
Uh-huh.
come through because they're more of a regionalized,
Right. Right. Right.
producers out there. So as we go around the country, we know who the different ones are to contact. And believe it or not, where we get most of our ice is from poultry companies.
Oh,
um,
yeah.
we'll get boxes and waxed boxes, that case boxes that normally wings or legs or whatever go in. They will fill those up because they have their the huge ice machines. And so we literally have had poultry trucks roll in, but without poultry is really hard for us to cook, because to get the volume needed, that's a lot of work.
Right.
um, Now we have a new, not, it's not new technology, but we have have a new cooker that is like a charbroiler, conveyor charbroiler,
Sure, sure.
that'll roll it through. And we've been testing that with boneless, skinless chicken thighs, and we have to slow it down a little bit, unlike a burger, because we'll take burgers and run it through there and do things like a um, uh, we'll do that with a brown gravy over rice and things like that.
Yeah.
We get far outside of just the barbecue world anymore, because no one wants to eat a pulled pork sandwich every day. But
Right.
you take that same pulled pork and you put it over rice with a teriyaki sauce. Now you have something different.
Right. Right. Right.
But so we've progressed it. Rice has been one of the big things that we've added over the years, because we just know, one, it's inexpensive. Yes, it's heavy, but compared to yield, it's pretty light what we can get out of it. And we're at full tilt. We're running 10 tilt skillets at a time, which is about 10,000 servings when you're doing just vegetables out of those.
Right.
So we've gotten to where we can do a lot more and utilize the equipment in different ways. And so now poultry has started coming back in, because we have these cookers that we can run it. I mean, two people can run this conveyor belt system. One person, loading it and bringing this, and getting the cases there opened up and just loading it, and one person making sure that they don't overfill on the
Yeah.
other,
Yeah.
so
That's
it's a very interesting process when it comes down to it.
Do your people on the ground that are actually doing the cooking, because you were talking about this with the rice and teriyaki sauce and stuff, and I think that's tremendous. But do the people there, can they get a little creative? Let's say you had 100 pounds of frozen peas and you didn't know what you were going to do with them. Could they put that in the rice and put the
Oh,
teriyaki on?
absolutely.
Yeah.
We do a lot of that. We do a lot of mixed vegetable rice and stuff like that. We got pretty creative. When we went to Maui last year, we obviously weren't rolling semi trucks in. We weren't
Sure.
rolling stuff like that. So we partnered with restaurants over there, used our knowledge of how to mass feed and help the restaurants learn to scale to do things, and many of them kept doing it far after we left. But there, we learned, and worked to really provide culturally appropriate meals, right?
Right.
We were doing a lot more of, we were using a lot of um, pineapple juice with pork, and with to add sort of that tang that they're used to, not just our barbecue sauce.
Right.
We'd mix the barbecue sauce with that and thin it down, so you had those flavors. We had, I think we had rice on 90% of the meals that went out, the
Yeah.
sticky rice, because that's what they're used to there. um, and we learned a lot from that, in helping diversify our meal selection, to be able to do that. But we have our volunteers, when it's usually on the latter end of deployments, will work on menu development. So we try to continue to menu develop and let them give us some recipes that we may have to sit there and scale, right?
Right.
Not too many recipe books are written for a 40-gallon tilt skillet. So
No, not that I
I had
know of.
I had to go to my lead culinary guy and say, hey, Johnny, I need a recipe for 1,000 portions of Mexican street corn for an event that I'm doing. I
You
need your
got
help in scaling that up, because I'm not even sure I can do the math correctly. And he came back and we tweaked it a little bit, because the 40-gallon tilt skillet, that's 40 number 10 cans.
right. Right.
But when you're adding all these other things in there, I'm like, hey, we probably need to cut this back to 36, because when you're adding all the other things into this recipe, you're going to end up grossing this up quite a bit. So we play around with that, and we get to have a lot of fun with it. Like I said, they have a recipe book now, on both the protein and the vegetable side. So we try to menu plan a week out. And by doing that, we can rotate, but we also know what proteins we need to have in, and it helps us with ensuring that we rotate that protein through, and
Sure.
something not sitting on the ground for a long period of time.
Absolutely. We're going to take another break. We're going to come back and wrap up the regular part of the show. And I'm going to ask Stan a very pressing question. I think you'll like it. Anyway, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the nation. That's Barbecue Nation. We would like to thank the folks at the Oregon Crab Commission. I just did another crab deal, my version of a crab slider last week on TV here in the Northwest. And Dungeness crab, they go from sea to plate, as they say. If you get a chance to eat some Dungeness crab out there, folks, do it. We're talking with Stan Hayes here, CEO of Operation Barbecue Relief. Millions of meals served. I don't even, is 11 million the current number, or is
Yeah,
it
it's
more?
it's 11 plus. I don't even know what the current number is. It's over
Okay.
11 million. I know it's over 30, 36 different states, plus the Bahamas now, and we're somewhere approaching 120 or so deployments.
There you go. So my pressing question is, when you were in Hawaii, did you use spam?
We did not. We looked at it, but one, you couldn't get that much.
Yeah.
You'd go around the island now. I've also never seen the variety. Like, I was at Walmart, picking up some supplies one morning before I headed to the site, and I've never seen so many different varieties of spam in my life.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and at the McDonald's there, they do have a spam breakfast sandwich.
Yep. Yep.
But I wasn't brave enough. I just couldn't do it.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, I always liked spam. My
I'm not
dad,
adverse to spam.
yeah, my dad, having been in the military a long time ago, that was a no sale for him. He wasn't going to do that. But my daughter in college, she had a bunch of kids that went to school with her from Hawaii. And she came home one day and she goes, "Do we have any spam?" Now, this is a kid that, grew up eating kind of meat and potato stuff, but I never thought she would do that. I said, "Yeah, we have like 3 cans in the cupboard." And she took it, started making meals with it. I was proud of her. Anyway, that was a really pressing question on my brain.
Absolutely.
Do you get supports from the individual states or the federal government at all, or anything like that, Stan?
Yeah, so usually it's through the state if we get any, and then the state goes back. The way it works
Yeah.
is like with FEMA and everybody. If, let's say, you hear like, hey, the president's declared a disaster, for XYZ state, and they'll generally say, something like it's at a 75% reimbursement. Let's say
Okay.
that means that FEMA is going to go through the process with the state. The state's going to have to claim all of what's been done, and all the money spent to be able to get 75% of that money back. Well, what as a nonprofit, what we can do is all of our volunteer hours can be monetized. There's a whole organization out there that tells you what the chart is and how much a volunteer hour is worth and all of these things. So we keep meticulous records of, down to the volunteer themselves, how many hours they spent on site.
Right.
So, when they checked in, when they checked out, all of those things can be provided as support. So we can go to a state and say, hey, our volunteer hours may equal, 60, 70,000 hours during that time at $30 an hour. This is how much this could mean to you. So what we want you to do is we want you to help us with, the cost of these meals, because in turn, you're going to be able to use not just the cost of the meals of feeding people in your state, but our volunteer hours to go back. And now that's how they could be made whole, because all those volunteer hours could help them get well over that 75%
Right.
to hit
Right.
that 100%.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so and a lot of the smaller states don't know it. A lot of the small emergency management folks have never really dealt in that world, so they don't know. So we try to educate them on how we can help them. But the big states like Florida, some in Texas, some up in the Northeast. I mean, the Carolinas and stuff. We've been well known in those areas. They know who we are. We have members of our team going to these emergency management conferences across the country, so we have connections. Um, some states are easier to work with than others,
Right.
but we're also not going to, we're not going to wait for a state to come and say, hey, we want you here. Even though Florida generally says it before we ever mobilize, they're like, hey, we want you to be on our feeding team, or you know Louisiana or something like that. So um, dealing directly with FEMA and the federal government is just a very difficult thing to do. So we much prefer to work with the state or somebody else, and
I,
be
un- I
let
understand.
them be the middleman.
Yeah. When would a state like Florida call you and say, hey Stan, we've got Hurricane Izzy coming in, and would would you be ready? Would you go have your, you kind of know the flight path or the
Yep.
travel path? Would you guys be staged at the Georgia border for us, and whatever I don't know exactly how
Yeah.
you do it, but they get there and you got your first 10 trucks lined up ready to go as soon as they give you the shoot up the flare.
Yeah. So that you know that is very much how it works on with hurricanes, because they have enough lead time that they you know they can come to us. They also know what our capacity is. They know that if I have every piece of equipment on the ground, I'm at 60 to 65,000 meals a day capacity wise. Generally, they also know what keeps me from getting there, because that's generally what I harp on when they're like, how fast can you be to 60? How fast can you get me bunkhouses for people to stay in?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because what keeps me from getting to 60,000 is supply chain, which generally I control a lot of my supply chain. Um, but it's the volunteer side. If I don't have places for volunteers to sleep and stay, I can't bring them in to scale up to that as fast as they would like me to sometimes. And,
Right.
and that's my leverage with the state to be able to get some of those things. You want me at 60,000? Well, that means I got to have 200 people to 250 people staying on site, and you're going to have to help me get another 100 of day workers that are coming from the area.
Yeah. Do they give you a hard time about that ever, or do they just
Oh, they look. It's like a broken radio. We have the same conversation over and over again, and they know who we are. They know what we can do. They know our capabilities. But it's generally a new person in that position that
yeah.
knows that we can do it, heard we can do it, but they want to know what's it going to take for us. And the bunkhouses, we roll in with um, two of our own bunkhouses, our own bathhouse, and about 4 or 5 travel trailers for the core team to be in. So, our bunkhouses, one sleeps 11 in individual little pod rooms, and the other one sleeps 13. Um, so, what we're at 24 people that we can sleep. And then we have, like I said, some travel trailers. So we try to put our core team that's on the site there, are those guys that are going to be there for 7 to 10 days, in a travel trailer and not in one of those bunk rooms.
Got it. But yeah, when you get there, you need 10 times that much space though for
Yeah,
all your volunteers and stuff. We've got about a minute left, Stan. I'm gonna hold you over for after hours. But
sure.
what do you think was the one thing, and you've been doing this now for 13 plus years? Was there one event, one episode, one thing you saw on the ground that made you know that you were doing the right thing?
Oh, I think we saw it in Joplin. I got asked this similar question, and it is that heartfelt thank you
Yeah.
from somebody that could never repay you for what you're doing there. Thanking you for something as simple as a pulled pork sandwich. That when somebody there's something about having to ask somebody for food.
Right.
It's pretty humbling, right?
Yes,
But
it
when
is.
you're there and you're doing that, and you see somebody break down, and all they want to do is know who they need to thank for something like that, it's a very humbling thing. Many of the people that I call it, what's your why? What's your why? Why do you do this?
Right.
And almost, and when a volunteer tells me they haven't found their why, they're also one of the first people to come up to me when they do get it and say, I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, Stan, website, throw out some information so people
Yeah.
can
So the
check it
website
out.
is, yeah. So the website is obr.org. And, you can go to that site and register to volunteer. We're actually going to be up in the Pacific Northwest again in June, up at A for Barbecue Fest, and we'll need some volunteer help up there. So be looking for volunteer opportunities. But you can also go to the website and click that donate button and help out. Follow us on social media. It's OP Relief is the handle on all the different social media. Watch my updates on the camp,
Yep.
and watch for wish list Wednesdays. Right now, our big push is helping us finish out what we need to purchase, to finish out the rooms and everything once we get that camp built.
Excellent. Maybe this year I can help you at A. Don't know the dates yet, but I'll see.
It's
Anyway,
Father's
Stan.
Day. It's Father's Day weekend, the 14th, 15th, 16th of June.
Well, I'm probably not doing anything that weekend. So daughter's gone, wife's probably in Europe or something. Anyway, Stan Hayes, CEO and co-founder of Operation Barbecue Relief and friend of the show. Stan, thanks. Stick around for after hours, folks. We're going to be back next week with another edition of Barbecue Nation. I'm JT, and Miss Leanne is will be back next week, I think. Remember our motto here: turn it, don't burn it. Take care, everybody. Hey everybody, welcome back to Barbecue Nation. This is the after hours portion that you can only hear online. And now I will tell you this, we've been working very hard the last few weeks. We had this whole library full of videos of the shows. And don't ask me why, other than I've been exceedingly busy the last couple of years producing not just these shows, but other things. So we finally started to push them out there. We don't have that many out there, maybe 20 or so now. When you figure we've got a couple hundred of them, and also for my golf show. But we'll push this show out front for you here. So, anybody ever give you any negative? I don't like to be negative, but did anybody ever give you a hard time about what you're doing?
Yeah, you get a little bit of a hard time when you continue to ask. People sometimes, man, all you do is continue to ask for donations or ask for this. Why do you need this? Or, so you have those negative people that see one post or see a post that's promoted that keeps showing up in front of them, but they don't go look at any of your other posts to tell the whole story.
Right.
Right. And then you have people that, I saw one the other day, and he's like, pretty negative about the organization. We were out working in the Panhandle of Texas just recently, and we chose to, instead of taking the time to get our equipment across out there to get our supply chain in and everything, we decided to take the money and prop up some local businesses, some barbecue business in Amarillo that were friends of ours, and some food trucks that were out and going to these communities to get the food out there, right?
Right.
And we thought, I'd rather do that than spend the money to get my equipment moved out there. And by the time I get my equipment moved out there, it's probably on the downhill slide because it's going to take a couple of days. And so we were telling our story out there, and inevitably you get somebody that are like, yeah, this has just become a business to them. It's no longer a charity. And I'm like, well, first of all, one thing is the IRS expects me to run this charity as a business. You're right. It is a business, but we're a charity, and they expect us to run it that way.
Right.
They expect me to pay people commiserate to what they would be paid in the normal, in a for-profit business. So, I think there's still a lot of people out there that think, you if you work for a nonprofit, you got to be poor. You got to pay them below what a living wage is,
Right.
and they should be poor. And that's not really what it is. I mean, I think that people just don't understand that and just have this conception. I had a guy told me that at the end of the year you should have no money in your bank account. You should start fresh every year. I'm like,
What?
what?
That
I
makes it. Yeah.
I so if something happens on January 1, I have no money to go do it. I mean, that just doesn't even seem, well, that's what nonprofits do. And I'm like, no, that's not what nonprofits do. That's not what it means to be a nonprofit.
Right.
Um, so
Yeah.
I think that there's just a lot of misconceptions, and then there's a lot of old thinking out there. Um,
True. True.
Around, well, how much of your money goes to what? Well, that's a difficult situation when you're a disaster relief organization and you've got employees and you've got people staged around the country and equipment staged around the country, and you have what is a good year, right? Not a good year does means that there is not major disasters that you're responding to. Now, in our world, we're not making revenue when we're not active in disasters. People don't donate to us. It's a very emotional give most of the time,
Sure.
is when you're in the middle of it. But when you're not in the middle of it, you know, and that's where the sustainability of the camp comes in, because I can show foundations, I can show companies, here's what we're going to do on a weekly, monthly basis.
Right.
Um, and it adds a revenue stream that we don't have today.
Well, it's kind of the old, excuse me, the old out of sight, out of mind deal. And I work with, and this isn't about me, but I work with a number of nonprofits for scholarships and kids and veterans.
Sure.
And it's, around Veterans Day, they're like rah rah, sis boom bah. Excuse me, gosh. But on the 15th of May, they don't think about it very much. You know what I mean? When you're doing that. And I think about it all the time. Instead of just doing these shows, that's the other part of my life that I do and produce and help these people. And so
Sure.
I know exactly what you're saying when they think, well, you've always coming to us with your hand out, so to speak, to help. These people need help all the time. They're different people all the time that need
Yep.
help. It's not just the family across the railroad tracks like when we were growing up. Excuse me for a second. Gosh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Anyway,
no.
but I've been on the end of that, some of those tawdry comments, if you will, about what are you doing here? What are you trying to accomplish? And it's like, if I have to explain it in that depth to you, they probably don't get it.
Yeah. Well, and the fact is that they see it from time to time. They see these posts because we boost them, or we promote that post so it's
Right.
seen more on their social media. But they don't see the ones when we're asking them to register as a volunteer, give your time. You know, give there's more ways to give than just with money.
Right.
you know
Right.
and we try to educate our people that, hey, we want, money is great, but your time can be even worth more.
More.
you know
Right.
um like, again, we're this year at A we're going to do something really cool up in the up there. We're going to do 2 days because it's Father's Day weekend. We're going to do 2 days of classes.
Oh,
you know
good.
not we're going to do, the first day is going to be a women's class, and it's for female first responders and the significant other of a female first respond or of a first responder. And that way we'll have a female class on Saturday. And one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to teach them a whole entire dish on the grill that they can go home, and if they want to, the next day they can recreate that dish for Father's Day.
There you go.
So they're going to walk away with the meat and the things needed to be able to recreate that dish the next day.
I think
And
I'll
then
sign my wife up if she's in the country.
and then on Sunday, we're going to have father children cooking class on the grill. And so we're really trying to target between 12 and 18-year-old kids with dad, but we'll take some of the older kids. but
Sure.
the younger, we're putting the floor at 12, just because of, we don't want anybody to get hurt,
Right.
and everything. But each class is going to do three proteins, or well, three items. The women's class will be three proteins, and one of those dishes is actually going to be their lunch. That will do the whole. They'll cook their whole lunch.
Sure.
Um, on with the kids class, we're going to end with a dessert on the grill that they get to prepare. We're going to have a whole little, we're going to have, everything from Nutella to marshmallow fluff to bananas and, fruit and everything that they can put on this. And we're going to do flatbreads, so
Oh,
they
there
can
you
do
go.
a little dessert pizza. And because of who we are, and we came from the competition world, we're going to turn that into a little kids competition, and we're going to get some of the celebrities, celebrity chefs that are there to be the celebrity judges for it, and come over, and these kids are going to get to bring these celebrity chefs their dessert that they created.
I
Right.
like that.
And I think, look, that's the future of competition, barbecue competition, food sports, are those kids. So let's get them interested today.
I volunteer to be a judge, Stan.
Hey, heck yeah. And it's going to be, for us, I look at this as a great opportunity for, the celebrity chefs to come by and thank first responders, and thank those spouses of first responders as well that'll be there. Thank the kids, because mom or dad are getting up in the middle of their birthday, or getting up and going, at the drop of the hat for an emergency. They I think it's important that we show them that, hey, there's a lot of love for them around the place. So
Absolutely. So I got a couple of, we usually do these kind of abstract
yeah.
questions in after hours, right? So
Yep.
I have a couple here that I picked out especially for you. No, they're good. They're good.
Oh no, I'm
It's if you could cook for and then dine with, because you're kind of a historical organized guy. I mean, we've talked before about different things, but if you could cook for and dine with a historical figure, who would it be, and what would you and Golick cook them?
yeah, wow. I said, you know, um I'd probably, go back and, I think that, I had an opportunity to do an event just recently called the Descendants in DC. And I was in Washington, DC with the descendants of many civil rights leaders, you know, um, and, from, Malcolm X's kids being there to, know, um, but, you know, if you went back and you look at that, I would, I don't know if it's just, if it's one person, but if it was, I think it would be fantastic to sit there and be able to serve MLK
Yeah,
Jr.
yeah, yeah.
and provide him a meal, and I would probably do a traditional just barbecue, throwdown of ribs and pork and brisket, to and to give them a true family style meal. I think that would be something that would be pretty incredible to be able to do.
You'd have to have that peach cobbler because he was a Georgia guy. So,
Oh, look, I like I cobbler is one of those weaknesses. It's like a
it's like you're addicted to
kryptonite out there
something.
that you don't want to touch, like
Yeah.
liver. But then you have something like peach or blueberry, or
Yep.
and
Gotta have it. Gotta have it. Um, if you could teach a politician to cook, to barbecue, smoke, whatever, and actually work, like, not just for a photo op, but like a whole day with OBR, who would it be, and what would you teach them to cook? And who would you do so that you didn't feel the necessity to whack them in the head with a skillet? So there, you've got all your
you know,
parameters for that question.
that is such a loaded question. I don't even know where to go. So I have had a small opportunity with Steve Scalise,
Yeah.
When we served our 1 millionth meal, he actually came and because we were in Hammond, Louisiana, and the parish president got him to come over and come by, and he spent about 2 hours with us, and he did stick, did more than just stick his head in the smoker. He actually pulled off some pork loins, actually helped slice some pork loins. He wanted to see what really went into all of what we were doing, right? um a very, all of them are controversial. If I go right, I'm gonna get hit. If I go left, I'm gonna get hit. But you know,
I think Scully seems like a decent guy
oh no,
myself.
he's a great guy. He came in and acted like an ordinary person. There wasn't any pomp circumstance, besides his team coming in and doing a sweep and asking how many guns were in the place. And we're like,
Yeah.
God, there's a lot of them. I mean, we're not in the greatest area of town. People are
Yeah.
packing around here. But no, I mean, truthfully, I mean, Steve is one that truly comes to mind. I get in Florida, we get quite a bit from like Mark Rubio's folks and the different states that we're in, um, asking us what we're doing from their offices because they know we're there and they've heard our name, and so they want to be able to tell their parishioners in their areas what they're doing.
Sure.
But I think Steve's one that we've had the longest relationship with, and we've done a heck of a lot of meals in the state of Louisiana.
Yeah.
Florida is the only one that we've done more in.
Yeah, I can see that. What, you know, what is Stan's favorite barbecue? I mean, non-barbecue meal.
Non-barbecue meal.
Non-barbecue meal for you.
So, you know, like I go a couple of different ways. I go through these, there's times where it would probably be Chinese food.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You
That's
know,
a big one. That's a
you know,
common answer. Yeah.
I love, I love rice. Um, I love a good spicy chicken, whether it's a Szechuan or something like that, a true authentic one. They look at you when you're saying, "Hey, I don't want like, white people hot. I don't want,
Yeah.
I want you to give me an authentic, spicy." And they're like, "You don't want spicy."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, give me a medium then.
Yeah.
Um, but I think outside of that, it would probably be a good fried chicken dinner with mashed potatoes, gravy. I mean, I look, I'm still trying to lose weight and not gain it all back, but boy howdy, I was,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite things in the world right there is a good fried chicken dinner.
How could you not like it? I
And
mean,
if you
it's
throw
just
in some okra and some greens in that, I am
you're
all over it.
you're set. You're set, man. It's all good. Um, okay, a couple more personal ones here, Stan, and then
All right.
I'll stop the abuse for the day. What is something your spouse was right about, was correct, but you still think she was wrong?
Oh Lord. She tells me I'm wrong all the time.
I understand that.
Um, Something that she was right about that I still think she's wrong, but I still think she's wrong.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's kind of a head scratcher, I know, but
It
we get
it is because it probably has to go back to when the kids were younger. Today it makes it pretty easy when you're as your kids get older and everything else, the arguments get less.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I've
I
found.
I know
Um,
that too.
I'm gonna guess it's something to do with our son, where she was probably right in something that she said, but I won't admit it. Uh, but that's one I don't know that I can put my finger on one right now. I'm sure if I asked her, if I hollered upstairs, she would tell me right off the bat which one it
Yeah.
was.
But
Because they keep score a lot fast, I think a lot more than we do.
they keep records.
Uh,
I can affirm that they keep records. Uh what would your last meal be on death row, Stan?
Oh my God. It would be a hodgepodge of everything from, some sort of like you know, a loaded type taco, street taco, a birria, maybe a birria type, taco to, you mentioned crab earlier, and I'm a
Yeah.
huge seafood guy. So with some crab, maybe some scallops and lobster tail, with a little bit of, prime rib thrown in there, with a piece of fried chicken on the side with some okra, and probably some macaroni and cheese somewhere in there. It would be like the best, potluck you've ever high end potluck you've ever been to. That plate would be like Thanksgiving stacked high.
Yep.
Like like you never thought you would get through the line ever a second time. So you better get everything this time.
Well,
Um,
you're not going to gain any weight, so it doesn't matter.
I mean, if I'm on death row, this is it. I might as well make myself, sick,
Yeah.
at that point. So, but it truly would be, probably 10 of my most favorite things. Whether I
Sure.
would eat each one of them, but I would definitely savor each one.
Well, yeah. And what about you got to have dessert?
Peanut butter pie.
Okay. There you go.
That is that you want to talk about an Achilles heel when it comes to I can I can say no to a lot of cobblers at times. I prefer, there's many times I will forego dessert for something that's more savory, you
Right.
know, but you throw peanut butter pie out there and
You're done.
I'm done. I mean,
Yeah. Mine's red velvet cake.
yeah.
Three-tier red velvet cake, cream cheese, pecan frosting, the whole thing. I see that. It's like I got to go call the doctor, get some gout medicine or something, you know.
Well, that 9 times out of 10, they come by, at a restaurant and they're like, "Hey, does anybody want anything?" And I'm like, "No, I'm good." When it comes to the dessert menu.
Right.
But if they're then, well, let me, somebody says, "Well, what do you have?" And they start spouting it off. If they say peanut butter pie, it's like 99% of the time, all
It's
the
on.
side. Yep, I think I need to have one of those. You know,
I get that. Okay, last one, Stan. Here's your chance. Uh Stan Hayes, OBR. What's your message to the world?
No, I think my message to the world is that, we've got to, we can do so much more together than we can divided. We've got to come together as a country. We've got to come together and help our neighbors in time of need, and that's what OBR does. Whether it's in disaster or outside of disaster, we're
Yeah.
helping those heroes, and their families. We're helping the people that have been affected by disaster. If you want to get involved with somebody, with an organization that's trying to do good in the world, check out obr.org.
Yeah.
Because if it's not us that you want to do it, find what's on your heart, find what really, if you love animals, go help at the animal shelter, but find something that fulfills you and follow that, because we need more of that in the world today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stan Hayes, CEO, co-founder of Operation Barbecue Relief. It's always great to talk to you, bud. It really
Hey, you
is.
know what? It makes an hour and 15 minutes go by really quickly talking with you, Jay.
It does. It could be because I'm full of it, but like to think we ask some decent questions once in a while. Anyway, please check out the OBR website. And if you're in the Northwest, look for Stan this summer up at A, which is just north of Vancouver off I-5. I know that for a fact. I've been there. And keep an eye on the television, because when you see those big winds coming up, spring, summer, and fall, more than likely Stan and his team's going to be there. Stan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
You be back. We'll be back next week with another edition of After Hours and the regular Barbecue Nation show. Until then, be kind to people and remember our motto: turn it, don't burn it. Take care, everybody.